I am so pleased to be here with Lloyd Hunter, who is an alum of Eden Seminary and has been shaped as part of the Eden community in commitments to civil rights and pastoral leadership that have extended through a lifetime.
There you
Pastoral,
go.
civil rights, teaching.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is good to be here with you.
The faculty there was priceless. People like Dick Scheef, Walter Brueggemann, Gene Worley, people who stood up for human rights. Okay? I'll take it off of civil rights a little bit, just say human rights. They were inspiration to me and still are. I mean, I can't think without thinking of human rights because I had those kind of mentors.
I have been inspired by some of the ways that you've told the story of Dr. Richard Scheef and how he worked with students in the mid-60s and how that may have shaped some of your early vocation.
He was taking some of our students down to Mississippi for activity in the civil rights movement, etc. And I was wanting to do that. And it so happened it was 1964. And it was the spring of '64, and he asked me, could I share with him why I want to do it? And I told him why, and he says, okay. And I said, no, you need to understand, I'm getting married in June, and so I'd like to do this. And he said, oh, I'm not so sure this is a good time for you to do that. If you're getting married, I can't guarantee anything, because we had a student who actually was arrested down there and went through some awful things. And I said, oh, okay. He says, but let's do it this way. Why don't we figure your time will come? Guess what happened? My first call was to a church in Little Rock, Arkansas. And the issues were hot there and very frequent. And I got involved in them. No way I could avoid it. And I didn't want to avoid it because I really wanted to be a pastor who is not only a pastor to his flock, which I was, and I think I did a good job there, but reaching out into the community and letting the community know that this church cared about it. And so I got involved, and that led to a number of different things. So in a sense, Dick was right. My time came.
You also had some experiences in that pastoral leadership that were about how you were standing for racial equity.
I think my congregation knew that I stood with the Black community and their right to vote, their right to worship.
It sounds like in the midst of everyday life and everyday ministering that the civil rights threat of violence and standing up for each other was just part of it.
In congregational church there was African American. And the new pastor was going to be installed, Mitchell Curry, and he invited me to be a part of the installation, which I was honored to do. And he said, you think some of the members of your church could come and participate when I have communion? Maybe they could help serve communion with some of our members? And I said, Mitchell, look, I will talk to them. I'll do the best I can, see what we can do. I can't guarantee anything, but let me check on it. Well, sure enough, I brought that up. Some people came forward and said, I'd like to do that. So we did it. And it was a marvelous day. It was a beautiful installation. had an ice cream social out in the yard afterward. And but during the ice cream social, trucks came through, bearing their guns and their clear Confederate flags and so forth. And people were a little on edge. You know, we all were a little bit on edge. Well, it ended. They just came around a few times and that was it. But then I got back to St. Louis. So we went, because we left right after that and came back for vacation in St. Louis. And I went down to the conference office. And I said, I talked to the conference minister, and he said, oh, by the way, that church burned right after that service. I said, what? He says, don't get upset. It was not because of arson. They had a fire in the closet. Okay, but that was the kind of thing that you could almost expect in those days, and you just didn't know. There was a black NAACP attorney who wanted to move into our little community. Well, we were on the outskirts. We were on the suburbs of Little Rock. The church was in the suburbs. We were in the suburbs. But he wanted to move into our community. And the people there brought a petition around for everybody to sign, not to allow this man to come in. I refused to sign it. About a week after that, I heard a big thud on the front porch, on the door. I opened the door. Fortunately, they missed the glass. They didn't hit the glass, but there was a firebomb. A couple of weeks later, the house the guy's supposed to move into got firebombed. These are the kind of things that happened at the time.
So in your ministry in Little Rock in the mid-60s, you had these experiences within the congregation, preaching, pastoral care. You were also involved in the wider community, in the Ministerial Alliance.
Yeah.
And in that, you had some experiences in broadening the interaction of people in the community and people in your congregation.
I was the president of the Ministerial Alliance. That was 1968. And I got a call from the city sheriff, but he called me to say, look, you're supposed to greet the governor, Winthrop Rockefeller, at the cathedral for the memorial service for, I think he said Reverend King, didn't say Dr. King. I want you to know this. I said, okay. He says, well, he's getting death threats, the governor is, and we're getting a lot of suggestions that there may be people coming from outside, not from Little Rock, but from outside the suburban areas, and they could be armed. Okay. So I went down there. I greeted the governor. I knew him because one of my members was one of his secretaries at one time. And I greeted him, and the whole crowd moved in. I have to say that I went, in my mind at least, okay. I greeted him. We walked in. Nothing happened, thank God. We marched all the way to the Capitol. I was right behind the governor. Nothing happened. But those are the kind of things you had to face if you were going to take a Christian stance in the middle of the racial conflicts. Resigned from there. Charles Hoskins, who was the conference minister, came down and met with the committee to hire a new pastor. And they did say to him, after having Pastor Hunter, we can no longer have a segregationist pastor. Whoa. I was honored by that. And the man they hired drove up with a Black is Beautiful sign on his bumper sticker. and they harden. That is the kind of thing that you work with people. And I tell you what, the secret to that, to me, be there, be there, be there. Anytime they have a need. If they're in the hospital, be there. If they just simply have had a loss, be there. If there's something they're struggling with, be there. And let them know that you will be. And I think you do your pastoral work. And I'm serious about this. You really do your pastoral work. And for the most part, people will accept you. Now, let me tell you that I went to 2 other churches after that. They were wonderful. I went on and taught college level for 27 years and loved every moment of it.
One of the ways that we're articulating the curriculum goals is on vocational resilience. And I'm hearing in your stories a lot of vocational resilience.
Yeah.
So give you thanks for that.